All right, everyone. Welcome today to the Friction Map Live. In this episode, we will be covering something that hopefully is of great interest to you: 2026 projections and what you can do to make ensure that they are going to succeed. Let's start off first by anybody who is joining into the call. Feel free to type into the comments. I think it should be on the right-hand side of your screen. Please type in where you're connecting from. I would love to know who's on the call. Super, thank you. And let's go ahead and get started. So you're here today because you care about your 2026 plan and you don't want to just leave it to chance, or you want to guess. So what's one thing you want your 2026 plan to do for you? I'd love to hear in the comments. Please type that in. Because today we're going to walk through a real anonymized company that might be just like yours. It's very similar in the sense it's a company who's made a plan. And what you'll see is what's really going on underneath the surface of their plan. They've got this great idea, and I'll show you a little more about what that is. But what they can't see, what's hidden beneath the surface, what is not readily visible, is what is lurking beneath and is going to be the boat anchor to their success. And what you'll start to see is what might be happening inside your own organization. So again, love to ask a question to get you started. Tell me where you're connecting from and where you're sitting right now. Super, thanks. Let's get ourselves started. So today's case, why strong plans still miss their numbers. And it happens to all of us. If you have any comments throughout the course of this, please type into that comment box on the right-hand side. I'd love to get your questions and answer them as best I can at the right time. So today's story is really pretty simple. This company had a really strong plan and they missed in 2025. And the reason why is nothing was obviously broken. They had smart leaders and they had really, really clear goals. But I don't know if you've ever experienced this. You had a plan that looked great and still it slipped. So I would be curious, has that happened to you? Just looking for a yes or a no in the comments. Type in, have you ever had a plan that looked great and it still slipped? If you've experienced that, type that in the comments. So something was happening to this company that they couldn't quite see. It was quietly pulling the plan off course. They may have even sensed it. Individuals in the team, or maybe even the whole team, may have sensed it. So we're going to make that something hidden visible. And that's what you're going to see today. Why strong plans miss their targets. So you probably felt that moment when the plan looks good. You still felt uneasy because, look, a plan is a speculation as to what's going to happen in the future, using the best available knowledge you have visible to you. What if you're not able to see something? And you're not crazy. Most companies miss their numbers at least once per year. In fact, Gartner says 67% of companies miss forecasts each year. That's 2 out of every 3. Are you one of those 2 or that third one? Because it's not usually the planning that was bad. It was because the key assumptions, the gaps, or the misalignments stayed hidden while you were in the planning process. And how do you see those gaps, those assumptions, those blind spots that create the drag on your plan? So I'm curious, and again, I would love to see what you type into the comments here. What's one word that describes how planning usually feels to you? Does it feel certain? Does it feel uncertain? Somewhere in the middle? Type into the comments. I would love to hear what you have to say. So in order for us to truly see what is holding 2026 plans from being what they can be, and what this case study company, what actually was a blind spot for them, because every company has them, every individual has them, we need to start with this foundational idea. Let's think about how you walk or run. You need friction to move on the floor. The same friction, if you don't see a bump, can make you trip. And people often think of friction as a bad thing, but You can't run, you can't jump, you can't stop, and you can't change direction without friction. So friction is actually necessary. But that same friction can also make you trip and fall. In your business, friction is just the energy inside the system. It's inside the organization that's already there. The friction already exists. The problem is you can't see the friction. What does it look like? If you look at the floor right now, can you see the friction? You can't, but it's still there. So the quick check for you is, do you see friction as more helpful or annoying? And what is your default? And what you're going to see here is what friction looks like in a leadership system. Excuse me, a leadership team. This is an actual organization. You'll see some abbreviations for what they're called as we go around this circle here. Starting up at about 12 o'clock is market position, operational efficiency, employee engagement, cost retention, customer retention, revenue growth, market expansion, so on and so forth. Because each one of these colors in this graph, each one of these different shapes is a different leader on that same exact team. That black line that you kind of see in the middle here, that's kind of shaded in, that is the average of the team. So that is sort of the collective belief of everyone. So each line is a different leader on the team, and they're all looking at the same company, but they all see a slightly different picture. That shape of each one of those different and of all those different differences, that is the friction. What you see now is the friction, the real friction of an organization that missed some of their targets in 2025. That's what it looks like. If this is happening to your team, your plan is built on uneven, shaky, unstable ground. Can you see that? Because each one of those shapes represents a different person in the same organization and how they perceive what's going to happen in that organization. So looking at this shape, I'm curious, does it feel familiar in what happens in your organization? I'd love to hear from you. Drop a yes or no or too familiar in the comments if this seems or feels like what you already have in your organization or have experienced in the past. So let's talk about today's anonymized company, just so you can kind of see what this real example looks like and what is the effect of this friction. This company is a mid-stage business-to-business SaaS company, so software as a service. But it's not about whether it's a SaaS company or it's B2B. It's the fact that there are people and there's leaders in this organization. So it doesn't have to be SaaS for you to be able to relate to this. They set very normal goals, and you can kind of see what those goals look like. Better retention, better margins, more productivity. They wanted their sales to increase. They wanted their margins with their customers and what their services and products were to increase. And they wanted to increase productivity as an organization. Who doesn't want that? That is not too far from normal. Nothing wild, nothing reckless, just what most leadership like them or you might even aim for. From the outside, you'd probably say, that sounds like a pretty solid plan. Looks like one to me. Clear, smart goals that they've created for their organization. Sounds like a pretty solid plan. So my question to you is, how early did you start your 2026 planning? Have you done it already? Are you thinking about doing it soon, or have you not yet completed it? Because I'm going to show you and translate what this map means, this friction map, and what it reveals for this organization. Because I'm going to show you kind of how these hidden things are secretly going to kill the chances of an organization doing well, because they've got fantastic goals, reasonably thought out goals that they've spent lots of time, but it's the hidden risks that kind of lurk in the night in that organization that keep them from being successful. So this map tells us where the team is united around growth, but not what the current reality is. Consider this, a revenue growth. Look at how high this number is. Market expansion, brand reputation, strategic alignment, customer satisfaction. But you can look at financial health. You can look at customer retention, agile adaptability of the organization. Those are places where that same exact organization, the same leaders in that organization see things differently. They disagree on communication. They disagree on technology. They disagree on operations, the things that make growth possible. So they have really very reasonable growth metrics for 2026, but there's disagreement within the team. Let me ask you a question. Do you believe that they're going to have success when they all see the problem differently? Some of these leaders in this organization believe that customers are really happy. Others think there are serious issues. This is a typical organization. And this friction can be a source of better decisions if it's surfaced, if it's brought to light, like is here in this friction map that I'm showing you on screen. Or it could be a source of risk if it's just ignored and nobody bothers to pay attention to it. This organization couldn't see this. They hadn't seen this friction map, so they had no idea. And they waited till June of 2025 to find out, oh, we need to do a major course correct because people aren't on the same page. So if you had to guess, does your team mostly see the same reality or slightly different ones? And how do you verify that today? Because if your team looked like this, what do you think your chances of success in meeting your 2026 goals are when everyone sees things completely differently? I'd love to hear what you think. Tell me what you believe in the comments. So let's take this and show you how this friction map is changing odds of success. So you've got this fantastic plan. You kind of see that up towards the top left where what they want to achieve in 2026 and their KPIs. Great KPIs, well conceived, got a smart, and they've got a very capable team. They're smart people. And you see just below that a snapshot of what that friction map looks like. So this plan that they've made, the KPIs and the plans that they made for 26 assumes that everyone shares the same starting point and will execute the same way. That's the fundamental assumption. Of course, you got to assume that. You can't see otherwise. But the map that you saw shows that that's not true. People are working from very different pictures of the business. If I were to go down to my family and say at dinner today, hey, let's go on vacation. There's 5 of us, and there's 5 different concepts of what vacation means. Are we all heading in the same direction? Probably not. One of them wants to go to Legoland. One of them wants to go to Disneyland. One of them wants to go to Kenya for a month on safari. 3, 4, 5 different concepts of how we solve the same exact problem. Imagine if that applies to you. What do you think are the chances of success if you don't know that? That means that that execution will drift. It can't help but drift because they're solving different problems. And your forecast, it looks less solid than it looks. So in this case, we put the real chance of hitting that plan at maybe 45, 55% purely because of misalignment. They are seeing things differently. So I'm curious, if you had to predict your plan, your organization's plan for and real chance of being successful in their 2026 projections today, what would you guess is your number? There's no right number here. There's just what you believe is right. Because without a friction map, you really can't tell. So we've now seen one team's friction map. Now I'd like you to consider your own. Right? Your leaders may agree on the goals, but they agree on where you are today. Does one person in your team say, all right, our customer retention is fantastic, but somebody else at that table on a scale of 1 to 10 doesn't think it's a 10 out of 10, but thinks it's a 2 out of 10. They're solving different problems, and the way that they're going to approach solving those problems and execute is going to be different based on what they see. And if you can't see that friction map, how will you verify that they're on the same page? So leaders may agree on the goals, but do they agree on where you are today? If we mapped your team, the shapes and the gaps, they would be unique to you because every team is. The culture, the environment, the operating context, execution context, your sales, the markets that you're in, have everything to do with what they believe and see in your organization today. And it'll keep changing. So the real question is, Are you making 2026 bets with a clear map or with some blind spots still in place? And how would you find out today? So do you think your team would have similar variants or totally different shape? I'd love to hear, do you think your team would see things exactly the same? I'm curious. We want to keep this short, but I want to give you the opportunity to see your own friction map. If you saw that a friction map gives you this opportunity to see where the blind spots are, here's a free tool that we've created that builds a friction map for you. It'll automatically send you a PDF. It takes you about 3 minutes. And getting your friction map is simple. We call it the CORE Diagnostic, and it takes all of about 3 minutes. And if you're a bit of a perfectionist, maybe 5. It shouldn't take you very long. But if you answer these short set of questions, you'll get a visual of your own individual friction map. There's no jargon, fancy words, or no heavy lift. Everyone who's gone through it so far believes it's pretty simple. You just get a clear picture of where you and your plan may not line up. If you do that, you'll be ready for what we do together on Tuesday, where I will show you how to read your friction map and show you what it looks like when your friction map appears and how that aligns with your 2026 plan. So want your own friction map? Scan that QR code. Let me put one up on screen for you so you can see it as well. You should see a QR code up in the top left corner. And if you scan that QR code, it's going to take you to a diagnostic that will ask you a number of questions that should take you that 3, maybe 5 minutes max. And if not, you can just type map into the comments and I'll send the link to you directly so you can fill out that friction map for yourself. When you do that, so what happens is actually today I show you that the friction concept and how it appears in real organizations. And hopefully as you went through this, you saw how not understanding your friction can lead to tremendous blind spots that reduce significantly your chance of success. And if you remember that Gartner stat, 67% of companies will miss their projections. So there's a 67% chance that without this friction map, you're going to lose your chance to meet 2026 goals. So if you fill out this CORE Diagnostic, if you get your own friction map, I'm going to invite you to another session, a private session where I will actually show you your own friction map or allow you to understand how to read your own friction map. If you don't want to share it with others, that's perfectly up to you. But I'll show you how to see it. That whole process is free. It takes probably about 10 minutes before you'll have that map in your inbox. All you have to do is just scan that QR code. And if you take that 3-minute CORE Diagnostic, which creates that friction map, you'll get your personalized friction map. And I'll walk you through exactly how to read it for yourself. You'll understand where your misalignment lives, where your leverage points are, and how to strengthen your 2026 plan before the year even starts. You stack the deck in your favor. So take that diagnostic today and join me on Tuesday. All you have to do is scan the QR code and you'll get the opportunity to join me on Tuesday, where I'll walk you through how to read your own friction map. Because on the other side of it, that's where the real clarity happens in your achievement of your goals. Thanks so much for the time. Hopefully this was useful, and I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday.